And then just come into that position, and you can either cap your eyes or close your eyes, depending on how you feel. And we're just going to start by paying attention to the whole of our body, and just make a connection between the edges and the surface underneath us. So in this case, it might be the chair, you might be lying down, you might be propped up. So we'll start from the head, and we'll just be aware of the contact of the back of the head and then down into the neck, making sure that our neck and our head are supported. So as you settle down, feel free to move if you need to make yourself more comfortable or need to grab some extra support. And then come down through the neck to the middle of the shoulders, and then to both of the shoulders. Doesn't matter if you go to the left shoulder or the right shoulder first in this case. Just see if you're holding any tension there. And you don't need to concentrate on how to release it. Just see and inquire into how different they feel to each other. And the arms, make sure the elbows are supported, and the hands with the palms face up or down or to the side, however they are comfortable. Again, just inquire into the difference between the two sides. Then coming back to between the shoulders, coming down the spine to the mid-back and the lower back. Just seeing if we can perhaps spread the lower back and really lean into the surface that's beneath us. Then coming down into the glutes. Feel the point of contact with the chair, with the fabric of the clothing and of the chair. Flowing down into the back of the thighs. Perhaps if you're sitting down, half of them is really supported. Then coming down into the back of the knees. The back of the knees, not just the soft flesh, but also the bones. tender and delicate skin in this area, coming down through the calves and the Achilles into the heel and the bottom of the feet. Just feeling ourselves and feeling the atmosphere and the surface beneath us or around us. Just in this moment, maybe we're distracted by the mind or an external noise, or even a bodily sensation such as an itch. And if we are, then when we realize we've been distracted, just bring ourselves gently, compassionately back to the space that we're inhabiting. And just focus in on the center of the chest, to the space between the right rib cage and the left rib cage. What we refer to during this practice as the heart center. And that heart center, it has a front in the center of the chest. And just see if you can feel the back. As it leans into the chair. And there is a middle in that heart center as well. And if you're distracted, just use this as a compassionate anchor for yourself. Just if you feel lost, bring yourself back to this space. And then from there, we're just gonna come up through the throat, up through the sinuses, to the back of the eyes, and the eyebrows, the right eyebrow and the left eyebrow, and that space between the eyebrows. So just see that space between the eyebrows. Maybe it's covered with some stray hairs and some visual hairs. And just see if, because no other reason other than you're here and you can, if you can see out of the front of this space between the eyebrows. So just imagine a long almost camera, like lens coming out between the middle of the eyebrows. And you can zoom in, so you can imagine yourself just pressing a button in this area, perhaps extending, and then pressing it again and it receding. And you can time it with the breath as well. So as you breathe in, you can see this point, this camera lens extending, and as you breathe out, receding. So just breathing into that spot. Let's use that space between the eyebrows to visualize some fields in front of us. And the fields are green, and perhaps there's some little crop circles in them where the farmer has mowed the grass, and they've just piled the grass up in circles. And there are some trees as the field perhaps slopes down. And we're just going to zoom in just to see if we can see what type of tree. So if I zoom in and extend my telescope, I can see some oak leaves. I can see that this tree that's at the bottom of the field is an old, wise tree. An oak tree that's been there for many years. Just looking at the branches, looking at the leaves, perhaps extending my imagination or vision through this point a little further, seeing the details in the oak leaf. Seeing the edges of the leaf perhaps just beginning to curl up, and the green not as rich as it once was. There's a darker green to the leaf. And then see if you can get distracted by what's around. Perhaps you want to zoom out a little way and look at the different branches of the oak tree. And see that it really is a big tree, offering plenty of shade. So as you scan to the bottom, you can see that the grass underneath the oak tree doesn't grow as rich or lush as it does in the rest of the field. And you can practice zooming in through this space between the eyebrows. And it might just be like imagination, just zooming into that soil, that grass at the bottom of the tree, perhaps seeing some insects moving. There's been some rain, so perhaps there's some birds at the bottom looking for some worms. And remember, if you find yourself distracted, you can bring yourself back into your body, back into that heart space, just as an anchor. And then when you feel ready to go back to the scene, you can press the button, and zoom out and see what's beyond the tree. Perhaps you can hear some water and a stream, the whole stream perhaps marking the boundary of one side of the field. And as you zoom out a bit more, you can look up to the top of the field and see that the entrance, the gate, is at the top. So you can do whatever you like with this ability you have to zoom in and out. You can super zoom in with most crystal clear vision to the smallest insect crawling through the soil, or the pattern of a dewdrop on a blade of grass. And then you can also press the button and zoom out and see the full picture, see the context of everything together, and take in the full scene. The evidence of the farmer having mowed the field, having carried out their daily business, tending and nurturing the grass and soil, witnessed by the oak tree as it has stood in that position and witnessed generations of the same farmer's family before them. And just bring yourself back with the button and recede that lens back into the center of the forehead. And just be aware that there's just soft skin in between the left eyebrow and the right eyebrow. Both eyebrows together. Just sweeping back to the centre of the chest, down through the throat and the larynx, down to that heart space. Feeling into the back of the heart space and the chair and the clothing supporting you. Feeling down the back to the lower back. And the hips and glutes still supported by the surface underneath. Allowing yourself to really come back to the body. Feeling the weight in the back of the thighs and the back of the knees, calves, the Achilles down into the ankles and heels, and the very bottom of the feet. Perhaps taking the opportunity to move the toes with some contraction. That all movement is movement, whether it's uniform, just a gentle contraction, bringing some life and more stimulation to the bottom of the feet. Coming up through the legs, taking those contractions into the hips, perhaps just even defining it as a bit of a fidget, bringing yourself back to the chair, back to the surface that you're practicing on. And then coming up through the back of the head and the ears, opening and awakening to the sounds within the room. Perhaps the sound of a distant washing machine, or the road, or someone else breathing, or your own breath. And then opening the eyes with either a blink so that the light doesn't startle the irises, or that downward gaze, letting the light in gradually, and then just reorientating yourself back into the space, seeing that everything you can hear is really here, and bringing the practice to an end.